Good morning, Bob Goshen, Houston, Texas, here with my wonderful cup of coffee. I want to share with you 4 basic truths if I can. We're going to go through them very quickly because I know many of you really don't have a lot of time. Number 1, your capacity to grow determines your capacity to lead. Your capacity to grow determines your capacity to lead. You know, I have had the opportunity to train leaders now for over 4 decades around the world, every industry that you can imagine. And I have always come back to this number 1 truth. If you're not learning, if you're not staying progressive in your learning, then your capacity for leading will never come together. You know, in my book, The Power of Layered Leadership, which you can get on Amazon, my definition for leadership is the positive, progressive, ethical influence on others. I want to put an emphasis on that part number 2, progressive. One must continually be learning. One must continually be progressive. If not, you will be kind of like Will Rogers said in a statement that he said, you can be on a train track, but if that train is stopped, it will ultimately be run over by another train. And so it is in business. If you're not continually feeding your mind on how you can become better in the industry that you're in, a train or your competitor will run over you. Let me give you a couple of suggestions. Everybody says read books. I have disciplined myself now to read at least 3 books each month. I would hope that everyone on the end of this camera can do at least 1 book a month. Let me give you 2 that you can start with. Number 1, naturally, would be mine, The Power of Layered Leadership, of which you can order through Amazon or you can order through my website, bobgoshen.com. Great book. It's been used by the U.S. Army. It's been used by direct sales organizations, leaders. It's been used by Fortune 100s. I just came out of a bank where all the staff, the executive staff, we went through that book and pulled away takeaways from that book. Excellent book. Take your time, read it. It's several years of seeing how corporations have failed and what you can do to become a strong leader. My second book would be Ultimate Productivity. Ultimate Productivity. Very close friend of mine. I'll be having dinner with him in a couple of weeks back in Tulsa. His name is Jim Stovall. Jim is totally blind. Jim is a multi-millionaire. And he has, if you'll just Google him, I don't need to go into everything that Jim has done. But Jim has created a wonderful book there, one of the 30 that he has written. So that's number 1. Number 2, in order to stay progressive, I don't care what your industry is, go to as many as the training meetings that they're having around the nation. There's nothing like sitting before other people that have gone where you want to go. Number 2, the idea there, not just the information you're going to be receiving from the instructors, but also the networking that you will do with those that are present like yourself to learn. I have gleaned so much information from going to conferences like that and looking the people in the eye and extracting information on how and why. Instead of just giving someone your card and taking their card, start asking questions and it will evolve into some magnificent principles and answers for you. Next, listen if you're going to be progressive. I recommend TED Talks. It's an app you can download, and it's a wonderful app. I also have one related to a spiritual side of my life. I think it's very important that you all have that as well. Find someone that can mentor you in that area. There's podcasts. There's all sorts of leaders that have downloads that you can listen to that will improve you. So be sure and read, be sure and attend events, and be sure and listen. You know, number 2, dreams have a tendency to die. Have you ever noticed that? How many times maybe you've got, I've got this dream, I know I can do it. And it's not really because the dream is unworthy. Dreams die because people give up too early. Not unworthy, too early. The dream is not unworthy, you give up too early. I wish I could tell you over my lifetime the number of times that I stayed in there when I felt that I needed to quit. Things were not going correctly. I can tell you more about the hundreds and hundreds and thousands of men and women that I've had the opportunity to engage with and meet, that they almost came to that point where their dream died. I love Jack Ma. He is the founder of a company called Alibaba. They have 150 million hits a day on that website. Jack says this: never, never stop dreaming. Define your dream. Define your dream. The vision of where you wish to be in 90 to 120 days. I served during the Vietnam conflict. Now, I wasn't in the middle with the rifle and all of that. I was actually in counterintelligence, and I was everywhere. I was a spy. It's that simple. But during that period of time, I had friends that were active, some that I lost during that war. But I remember recounting that some of the prisoners that went into Vietnam, they would be put in this little 8x7, 8x6 cell, only to be let out for like 15 minutes, maybe if you're lucky, an hour each day. I mean, it was gross. Sometimes they were let out only to be beaten and only to be tortured. But when I was reading this specific book, I think it was called I'm No Hero, and he was a gentleman that was ejected from a jet. It was how these men would take their dream or their mind, and that's all they had. And they talked about a couple of stories. One about how a gentleman went in and he was an average pianist. You know, he did okay, but he was no great pianist. And the other one was a golfer at just a regular public course back home. They talked about how the pianist every day would imagine himself on a keyboard playing the piano over and over and over and over for 23 hours. He talked about how the gentleman would play the golf course back home on hole 1 and hole 2 and his drive and his layup and his putt over and over for 23 hours a day. Remarkable, the power of the mind, the power of the dream. When both of those men got out, the one became a master pianist. The other one went home and on the first day played scratch golf. The power of the mind, the power of not giving up, the power of staying in there and visualizing where you want to be. I've never met a great athlete. I've never met really a great entertainer, and for sure a great speaker that didn't visualize what they wanted to see. Remember, folks, that dream is so powerful that when the time comes in your life that you spend more time thinking about your memories than you do about your dreams, it's about time you hang things up. Emerson said this, number 3, that which we persist in doing becomes easier. Well, it's not that the task itself has become easier, but that our ability to perform the task has become easier. Think through that statement. Again, what happens to so many people, they get so frustrated when they're starting a new business or they're going a new direction in life, and they just have this presentation and they can't seem to get it right, and everything is going left and right, every direction but the direction they want to go. They can't seem to get a handle around that presentation. They just can't seem to do that. I remember in my youth, when I say youth, my very early 20s, I started in sales. I sold computing systems to lending institutions. My first 15 to 20 presentations not only embarrassed me, but they embarrassed that conference room where all these bankers were together to watch the presentation. It was horrible. Horrible. Here I was. I would stutter. I would stammer. I would sweat. I would turn red. And then ultimately something would happen to the computer and I'd be trying to fix that. And I could see the people, you try not to, but they're sitting around the boardroom smirking and giggling and whispering, oh, where'd this guy come from? But I stayed in there and I stayed persistent. See, the task never changed. The presentation never changed. But I went through it, I stood through it, and I came out the other end. Some of you right now, you're in that position where I was. No matter what your business might be. Your presentation of your company or your business, and kind of like my conference table, there may be some people going, I can't believe this person. But see, the task will become easier. Not that the task is easier, but your competence to perform that task will be so much easier. And last, here's what I found. Success is discovered in adversity. I wish I could take away some of the challenges and pains that you're going to face when you're in business or starting a business. And then I think, no, I don't. I want you to go through those, because I have found character is driven by those adversities. I find that when you go through those adversities, you're either going to become better or you're going to become bitter. You're either going to create that fine element of DNA as an entrepreneur, or you will step aside and fill someone else's dreams as you work for them. It's the overcoming of challenges that builds the character for success. That's a Goshenism. It's the overcoming. And it's not just the challenge. As a business person, or trying to get through a business, or starting a business, or trying to stay focused on a business, or trying to hit that next level, that next little step, whatever it is, it's how you respond to those challenges. And each time your response is going to become stronger, and you're going to become stronger. Folks, that's the ABCDs of today. So as you move forward today, there is no scientific way to become successful. It ultimately gets down to this thing called gut, your belly. Do you have the gut? Do you have the belly to stay in there and keep that dream alive, like Jack Ma says? To stay persistent when it's not going the way that you want it to go. And when those adversities pop you in the head, you go, oh, next. So until next time here in Houston, you have a great day and take dominion over your business.